Island, Chapter 21. The Attack. As soon as Silver disappeared, the captain, who has been closely watching him, turned toward the interior of the house, and found not a man of us at his post but Gray. It was the first time we had ever seen him angry. "Quarters!" he roared. And then, as we all slunk back to our places, "Gray," he said, "I'll put your name in the log. You've stood by your duty like a seaman. Mr. Trelawney, I'm surprised at you, sir. Doctor, I thought you had worn the king's coat. If that was how you served at Fontenoy, sir, you'd have been better in your berth." The doctor's watch were all back in their loopholes. The rest were busy loading the spare muskets, and everyone with a red face, as you may be certain, and a flea in his ear, as the saying is. The captain looked on for a while in silence, then he spoke. "My lad," said he, "I've given Silver a broadside. He pitched it in red hot on purpose, and before the hour's out, as he said, we shall be boarded. We're outnumbered, I needn't tell you, but we fight in shelter, and a minute ago I would have said that we fought with discipline. I've no manner of doubt that we can drub them if you choose." Then he went the rounds and saw, as he said, that all was clear. On the two short sides of the house, east and west, there were only two loopholes. On the south side, where the porch was, two again, and on the north side, 5. There was a round score of muskets for the 7 of us. The firewood had been built into 4 piles, tables you might say, one about the middle of each side, and on each of these tables some ammunition and 4 loaded muskets were laid ready with the hand of defenders. In the middle, cutlasses lay ranged. "Toss out fire," said Captain. "The chill is past, and we mustn't have smoke in our eyes." The iron fire basket was carried bodily out by Mr. Trelawney, and the embers smothered among the sand. "Hawkins hasn't had his breakfast. Hawkins, help yourself and back to your post to eat," continued Captain Smollett. "Lively now, my lad, you'll want it before you're done. Hunter, serve out a round of brandy to all hands." And while this was going on, the captain completed in his own mind the plan of the defense. "Doctor, you will take the door," he resumed. "See, and don't expose yourself. Keep within and fire through the porch. Hunter, take the east side there. Joyce, you stand by in the west, man. Mr. Trelawney, you are the best shot. You and Gray will take this long north side with the 5 loopholes. It's there the danger is. If they can get up to it and fire through upon us through our own ports, things would begin to look dirty. Hawkins, neither you nor I are much account at shooting. We'll stand by to load and bear a hand." As the captain had said, the chill was past. As soon as the sun had climbed above our girdle of trees, it fell with all its force upon the clearing and drank up the vapors in a draught. Soon the sand was baking and the resin melting on the logs of the blockhouse. Jackets and coats were flung aside, shirts thrown open at the neck and rolled up to the shoulders, and we stood there, each at his post, in a fever of heat and anxiety. An hour passed away. "Hang them," said the captain. "This is as dull as the doldrums. Gray, whistle for a wind." And just at that moment the first news of the attack. "If you please, sir," said Joyce, "if I see anyone, am I to fire?" "I told you so," cried the captain. "Thank you, sir," returned Joyce with the same quiet civility. Nothing followed for a time, but that remark had set us all on the alert, straining ears and eyes, the muskets with their pieces balanced in their hands, the captain out in the middle of the block house with his mouth very tight and a frown upon his face. So some seconds passed till suddenly Joyce whipped up his musket and fired. The report scarcely died away ere it was repeated and repeated without in a scattering volley, shot behind shot like a string of geese from every side of the enclosure. Several bullets struck the log house, but not one entered. As the smoke cleared away and vanished, the stockade and woods around it looked as quiet and as empty as before. Not a bough waved, not a gleam of a musket barrel betrayed the presence of our foes. "Did you hit your man?" asked the captain. "No, sir," replied Joyce. "I believe not, sir." "Next best thing to tell the truth," muttered the Captain Smollett. "Load his gun, Hawkins. How many should you say there were on our side?" "I know precisely," said Dr. Levasey. 3 shots were fired on this side. I saw 3 flashes, 2 close together, 1 farther to the west." "3," repeated the captain. "And how many on yours, Mr. Trelawney?" But this was not so easily answered. They had come many from the north, 7 by the squire's computation, 8 or 9 according to Gray. From the east or west only a single shot had been fired. It was plain, therefore, that the attack would be developed from the north, and that on the other 3 sides we were only to be annoyed by a show of hostilities. But Captain Smollett made no change in his arrangements. If the mutineers succeeded in crossing the stockade, he argued, they would take possession of any unprotected loophole and shoot us down like rats in our own stronghold. Nor had we much time left to us in thought. Suddenly there was a loud huzzah, and a little cloud of pirates leaped from the woods on the north side and ran straight on the stockade. The same moment fire was once more opened from the woods, and the rifle ball sang through the doorway and knocked the doctor's musket to bits. The boarders swarmed over the fence like monkeys. Squire and Gray fired again and yet again. 3 men fell, 1 forward to the enclosure, 2 back on the outside, but of these 1 was evidently more frightened than hurt, for he was on his feet again in a crack and instantly disappeared among the trees. 2 had bit the dust, 1 had fled, 4 had made good their footing inside our defense, while from the shelter of the woods 7 or 8 men, each evidently supplied with several muskets, kept up a hot, though useless fire upon the log house. The 4 who boarded made straight for them in the building, shouting as they ran, and the men among the trees shouted back to encourage them. Several shots were fired, but such is the hurry of the marksmen that not one appears to have taken effect. In a moment the 4 pirates had swarmed up the mound and were upon us. The head was Job Anderson, the boatswain, appeared at the middle loophole. "Get 'em, all hands," he roared with a voice of thunder. At the same moment another pirate grasped Hunter's musket by the muzzle, wrenched it from his hands, plucked it through the loophole, and with one stunning blow laid the poor fellow senseless on the floor. Meanwhile a third, running unharmed all around the house, appeared suddenly in the doorway and fell with his cutlass on the doctor. Our position was utterly reversed. A moment since we were firing under cover and at an exposed enemy. Now it was we who lay uncovered and could not return a blow. The log house was full of smoke, to which we owed our comparative safety. Cries and confusion and flashes of pistol shots and 1 loud groan rang in my ears. "Out, lads, and fight him in the open! Cutlasses!" cried the captain. I snatched a cutlass from the pile, and someone, at the same time snatching another, gave me a cut across the knuckles, which I hardly felt. I dashed out of the door into clear sunlight. Someone was close behind, I know not whom. Right in front the doctor was pursuing his assailant down the hill, and just as my eyes fell upon him, beat down his guard and sent him sprawling on his back with a great slash across the face. "Round the house, lads, round the house!" cried the captain, and everyone in the hurly-burly I perceived a change in his voice. Mechanically I obeyed, turned eastwards with my cutlass raised, ran around the corner of the house. Next moment I was face to face with Anderson. He roared aloud, his hanger went up above his head, flashing in the sunlight. I had not time to be afraid, but as the blow still hung impending, leaped to trice upon one side, and missed my foot on the soft stand, rolling headlong down the slope. When I first sallied from the door, the other mutineers had already been swarming up the palisade to make an end of us. 1 man in a red nightcap with his cutlass in his mouth had even got up to the top and thrown a leg across. Well, so my short had been that interval when I found my feet again, and all was in the same position. The fellow with the red nightcap still halfway over, another still showing his head above the top of the stockade. And yet, in this breath of time, the fight was over and the victory was ours. Grays, following close behind me, had cut down the big boatswain ere he had time to recover from his last blow. Another had been shot at the loophole in the very act of firing into the house, and now lay in agony, the pistol still smoking in his hand. A third, as I had seen, the doctor had disposed of in 1 blow. Of the 4 who had scaled the palisade, only one only remained unaccounted for, and he, having left his cutlass in the field, was now clambering out again with the fear of death upon him. "Fire! Fire from the house!" cried the doctor. "And you, lads, back into cover!" His words would be unheeded. No shot was fired. The last boarder made good his escape and disappeared with the rest into the wood. In 3 seconds nothing remained of the attacking party but the 5 who had fallen. 4 on the inside, 1 on the outside of the palisade. The doctor and Gray and I ran full speed for the shelter. The survivors would soon be back where they left their muskets, and at any moment the fire might recommence. The house was by this time somewhat cleared of smoke, and we saw at a glance the price we had paid for victory. Hunter lay beside his loophole stunned. Joyce by his shot through the head, never to move again, while right in the center the squire was supporting the captain, one as pale as the other. "The captain's wounded," said Mr. Trelawney. "Have they run?" asked Mr. Smollett. "All that could, you may be bound," returned the doctor, "but there's still 5 of them who will never run again." "5!" cried the captain. "Come, that's better. 5 against 3 leaves us 4 to 9. That's better odds than we had starting. We were 7-19 then, or thought we were, and that's bad to bear. The mutineers were soon only 8 in number, for the man shot by Mr. Trelawney on board the schooner died that same evening by his wound, but this was, of course, not known till after by the faithful party. This is the end of chapter 21 and the end of part 4. Wow, that was exciting. And, Captain Smollett was smart. He told the people to watch the loopholes, to watch the side. He knew that, they would be coming, and all they would have to do is stick their guns in the loopholes, and they'd be able to shoot in at people protected, just like they'd been planning to shoot out protected. So, fortunately, Silver wasn't quite as duplicitous as Smollett feared, but it almost came to that. And the heroes lost another friend. Someone else, and the pirates lost 5, but, it's rough. So Jim did his best, and he stumbled, but, everybody stumbles and everybody falls. As Proverbs says, a righteous man falls 6 times and stands up 7. So, that's what you got to do. If you fall, if you make a mistake, you do your best. And also, notice how when the captain asked the person, did you get your man? He said, I don't think so. The captain's like, being honest is the next best thing. Because they were mentally aware of, this is how many people we have to fight. This is how many people we have to deal with. And if the guy said, yeah, totally got him, no one would know. The guy was shot. He may have stumbled into the woods and died. But, it would have messed up the count. There's a great, great movie. One of the greatest movies of all times called The Seven Samurai. Done by Akira Kurosawa. He was the director. Starring Toshiro Mifune. Great movie. Watch it with your dad sometime. He loves it too. But it's sort of a Western. Except it's a samurai movie. Because Akira Kurosawa loved Westerns, and he made a couple of movies that were very much Westerns, but were set in samurai times. So, you had the samurai, these chivalrous warriors. And I mean, they were knights of knights. They were the of chivalry. Now, in the movie, you had these 7 samurai who were defending a village against 100 thieves. And they knew that there were 100 thieves for reasons. And they knew that the thieves had 3 guns. Rifles. Because even in samurai, even in the knight's time, firearms have been around since the 1200s. So anyway, they had guns, and they knew that the thieves had 3 guns, and they knew that there were 100 thieves. So the head of the samurai, when they started defending the village, and they built walls, and they did all of these fortifications. So it was much the same thing, except instead of being outnumbered 19-5, they were outnumbered 100-7, 100-8, because one of the samurai wasn't really counted as a samurai because he was just training at that point. Much like young Jim. Anyway, so they were outnumbered 100-7, and he set up a big tablet, and he put the 3 boxes up across the top for the guns, and he put 100 little boxes for each of the thieves. And then anytime there was a little skirmish, anytime there was a little fight, he would go up and cross one out, and keep tally. And that's what Smollett is trying to do here. He's trying to keep tally. So, if you fail, say, yes, I failed. Because it's easier to deal with a problem that you know about than it is to deal with a problem that you don't know about.